Coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, before we turn the page to Green Bay in Week 5 of the NFL season, got to look back one more time at the Raiders' loss to the Chargers on Sunday. We'll hear from head coach Josh McDaniels. We'll talk about the offense and a whole lot more, all coming up on Tuesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, October 3rd, 2023.
Just win. Just win. Just win. Just win.
The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won, and won, and won, and won, and won.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Make sure you subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast to get the latest edition of the show. Of course, as always, if you're checking us out on YouTube, thank you. Show's been growing in a major way. We definitely appreciate you, and it's because of you. It's also because of my man Ari. Does a great job each and every day making sure we're up on YouTube, we're looking good, we're sounding good, we're doing what we're supposed to do. So we appreciate Ari as well. You can hit him up on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can always hit me up on Twitter as well at your boy Q254. And we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. Those calls and texts will come up in segment number 3 of the show. Coming up in segment number 2, we'll talk about a subject that I didn't think I was going to have to question at all this year, and that's the Raiders' offense. I thought that they were going to be high-flying. That was not going to be the problem of the team. Matter of fact, that was going to be the strength of the team, and all the defense had to do was complement the offense, and everything was going to be good when it came to the silver and black. Well, through 4 weeks, the first quarter of the season, it hasn't been. So we'll talk about the offense. We'll throw some numbers at you, where they compare in the AFC, where they compare in the AFC West, and who is scoring in the NFL like the Raiders or worse. All that comes up in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, I'd like to give you the news and notes of the day. And really, it's going to be a lot of sound from head coach Josh McDaniels, and we met with him at the Intermountain Health Performance Center early on Monday. Before we get into any of that, though, I do want to tell you today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. That's Gametime. So let's go ahead and jump right into segment number 1. Of course, again, the Raiders 24-17 losers to the Chargers. They're 1-3 on the season. The Chiefs are sitting there in first, Chargers in second. Raiders and Broncos are tied for third. So let's go ahead and get into what head coach Josh McDaniels had to say at the Intermountain Health Performance Center on Monday. And there was only a handful of us there at the media center. A lot of people were still heading back from L.A. and the Chargers game. Some took an early flight, like Adam Hill. He took a super early flight, like 5:30 in the morning. He made it to the facility. Paul Gutierrez, he flew out Sunday night. Others were coming in a little bit later, so they weren't able to make it to the facility. But it was still good to, be able to catch up with Coach McDaniels, ask him a few questions about the game. And off top, he came in just kind of with his overall thoughts on the game. So off top, he was talking about the Raiders contributing to the losses by the mistakes that they were making, helping other teams actually defeat them. So here's Coach McDaniels talking about making those mistakes.
After watching the film, opportunities there, need to take advantage of them. Obviously, the biggest thing we have to do is stop, contributing to losing with mistakes that we have control over, and most of those center around turnovers and penalties. And so, We'll keep working at both areas to try to play a turnover-free game, a penalty-free game. When we do that, I think the result will be a lot more favorable for us. So, we're going to address those things again and continue to harp on them.
So when you talk about those mistakes, you're talking about turnovers and penalties and turnovers. It's just that simple. And the Raiders had a lot of both on Sunday, and that's not a recipe for a win, especially a team that's struggling to score points offensively. And again, we'll get into the struggle offensively in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, but you just can't have those kind of mistakes, those kind of penalties, and those kind of turnovers when you're trying to win games. It's just not going to happen. And, Aiden O'Connell, I know that was his first experience, but putting the ball on the ground a few times, losing the fumbles a couple times, and, of course, that pick at the end of the game, that's going to be a recipe for disaster each and every time. So here's Coach McDaniels as he opened up again with his opening statement. He gave his overall thoughts on the Raiders' defense on Sunday.
Defensively, I thought we talked about this yesterday after the game. We missed a handful of tackles that ended up in some extra yards that, if we can get those guys to the ground. Otherwise, I think we would have stopped them a few other times as well. But I thought they really got a handle on how the game was being played defensively as it went on. Played physical. Again, take away a few of the missed tackles, and I thought we really tried to kind of contain this group as best we could. It's obviously really good quarterback and a good offense, and to hold them where we did and give ourselves an opportunity, I give our defense a lot of credit. And as we talked yesterday, I thought Aiden, the game was a hair quick for him early. We didn't do a good enough job of protecting, early in the game, and then obviously tried to make some adjustments there. He got a little bit more comfortable in the second half and, made some decent plays, but ultimately not enough to win. And, we all have to do a better job. So that's what we're going to focus on this week.
So there's his overall thoughts on the defense. And as he said, and as you saw during the game, the defense got a lot better and pitched a shutout in the second half. And going up against Justin Herbert to limit him, I should say, to the yards that he threw for, the production that he had, that was a hell of a job. Now, again, the Chargers got a lot of production on the ground. And that's not something that they normally do, but they were able to do it because, the Raiders were a sieve early on in the game. Second half, they really buckled down, but in the first half, the Chargers were basically able to do anything they wanted to. But, Herbert had less than 200 yards of passing. That's a big day for any defense going up against Justin Herbert. Regardless of how you feel about him, he's a really good quarterback. I'm hoping that the Raiders defense could build off of what they did in the second half and take it into this Monday game against the Green Bay Packers. Even though Jordan Love is young, I know that the offense hasn't been clicking great for Green Bay, and their offensive line's not very good. We've seen other teams get their offense together against the Raiders in their defense. So I'm hoping that Raiders defense that played in the second half against the Chargers can start the game off on Monday night against the Green Bay Packers and really put their best foot forward and help this team snap their 3-game winning streak or losing streak that they're on currently right now. The next soundbite from head coach Josh McDaniels has to do with Aiden O'Connell and Jimmy Garoppolo. And this is the question that I asked him. It was one of the first questions that was asked at the Intermountain Health Performance Center on Monday. And it was basically about if they had made a decision, right? Did Aiden O'Connell do enough to earn some more action, or is it the Jimmy G show as long as he's healthy? Here's Josh McDaniels. Here's my question and his answer.
You guys made a decision on, is Aiden going to get some more action, or is it Jimmy G if healthy?
Well, Jimmy would be. We're still waiting and seeing. We're still under the same conversation we were last week until he clears. So he would have to clear first, and then we could talk about, that. But yeah, if he is, then that's what we do.
So real quick, fast and in a hurry, no definitive it's Jimmy G's show for sure as long as he's healthy. But basically that's what he alluded to. I guess he left himself a little bit of wiggle room just in case they decide to change their mind throughout the course of the week. But for Jimmy, he's got an extra day to get healthy. So not that I'm trying to get him benched, but my whole thing last week when I was objecting to Aiden O'Connell getting the start was because I wanted to see him get more than a 1-game sample size. And it sounds like that's what he's going to get, which is fine. You get a look at what he can bring to the table. Maybe later on down the road this season, maybe he gets back into the action and he can build off that. But I just think for a young kid, he needs to have more consecutive reps and more opportunities at it, right? More swings at the ball to have an opportunity to hit one out the park than, we're going to give you 1 game and then we're going to sit you for a bunch of games and then here you go. And who knows when he'll be back in action. Not that I'm trying to wish anything bad on Jimmy, but we know his injury history. So he could be injured, who knows, as early as Monday. Again, not trying to wish injury on anybody. I would never do that. But, it's just a reality when you're talking about Jimmy Garoppolo. The thing about it is, if Aiden O'Connell is, going back to, being a backup, maybe not being the third string backup, not maybe the emergency quarterback, maybe he should now just be the backup quarterback and make Brian Hoyer that third guy. That might make sense moving forward if they want to have an opportunity to maybe get Aiden O'Connell in sooner rather than later. But again, I just think the best thing for that young man is to see him more than just 1 game. And that's why I objected last week to him starting. I thought Hoyer made more sense if it was a 1-time start and then they were going to go back to Jimmy G. But again, I'm not the coach, not trying to second guess him or even question him. I'm just giving my opinion, and that's what I do here on the show. Just got a few more sound bites from head coach Josh McDaniels as we met with him on Monday at the Intermountain Health Performance Center, Raiders HQ. And this is about the penalties that they had. And they had a bunch of them, like 9 of them, almost 100 yards of penalty yards. And you can't have that. The Raiders aren't good enough to turn the ball over multiple times and have almost 100 yards in penalty yards and think that they're going to win the game. It's just not going to happen. So Coach McDaniels was asked if there was a common theme for the penalties that the Raiders had on Sunday.
Not really. I mean, you saw them. I mean, it wasn't like it wasn't like it was 7 offsides penalties or 7 offensive holding penalties or anything like that. You know, the Tillery play, like I said, it was one step onto the white. You know, so you know, that is what it is. You know, the Myers play was a tight coverage play. There was a couple guys back there. I thought he made a really good play on the ball, but you know, they called some contact there in that situation. The Spillane, you know, on the interception, you know, that was kind of again, we understand the rule. I think all our guys do that, you know, and it's the force, you know, it's the force that you do it with that creates the contact. So, you know, it wasn't one penalty that kept showing up. And, you know, we just, again, the best thing we can do is keep educating, keep coaching it, keep talking about it. I think our guys, they want to play penalty free. They don't want to go out there, and they're not trying to commit penalties. I know that. So we just got to make better decisions in certain situations. And, you know, there's going to be a few every week where it might be a bang play and you're trying to do the right thing, but, you know, you get called, and I understand those. So we'll continue to coach off of what we saw.
So I'm with Coach. I don't think that there was a common theme. I just think there was a bunch of mistakes. There was a bunch of penalties that they just can't have that are just lack of discipline type plays, right? I mean, you just can't have David Long Jr., and I feel like I harped on him a lot on Monday on the podcast and also on the radio show. But, I mean, him walking up to the line of scrimmage and then past the line of scrimmage, he just about was lined up with the defense or with the wide receiver, right? I mean, football 101, you look for the ball, locate the ball. That's where the line of scrimmage is. The ball's going to be on the line of scrimmage. You can't pass that. And when David Long Jr. just went right past it, I was thinking, like, what in the hell is he doing? And I was like, is there something that I don't know? Right? I mean, I was so confused. And then when the flag was on the ground, I was like, oh, I'm not confused anymore. He just was offsides, right? And that's a big penalty. That took away a sack. That took away a strip sack. That took away an opportunity for the Raiders to get off the field with only a field goal surrendered as opposed to a touchdown, right? So that's a bad one, right? Obviously, Robert Spillane, when Trayvon Merrick's got the interception return, and it was a nice return. It was on the Chargers side of the ball. All of a sudden, they have to go back deep into Raiders territory because of that bad penalty, right? I mean, there was a couple penalties that were suspect, both on Jacoby Myers. One was the crackback block. I thought that was BS. I don't beg for calls. I don't blame the referees for losses, but I thought that was a bad call. And then the offensive pass interference that he got late, you know, in the game where it was a deep ball and he clearly pushed off. That's fine. But the Chargers clearly pushed off at the end of the game as well. When Herbert took that deep shot to finish the game, that was a push off on Jacorian Bennett, and they didn't call it. So, again, I'm not begging for officials to make plays and make calls and bail the Raiders out, but just be consistent with their calls, right? That's all I'm asking. So there was just too many times. Obviously, the Jerry Tillery play, we don't have to talk about that. That was, you know, a bad one where it cost him yardage, and he got kicked out the game. Those can't happen, and it's just – you know, again, that's one of those bad plays. And Vinny, I want to pull up let me see if I can pull it up on Twitter real quick. Vinny had a tweet that I thought was really interesting about Jerry Tillery. Let me see if I can find it real quick. If I can, that'd be great. If not, well, then forget I even said it. Because then, you know, that's just kind of how it is. Dang it. Let me see. Hold on. It was a really good one about all his penalties, Jerry Tillery's penalties that he's had. And now, of course, I can't find it. And that's not a good thing. That's bad radio. Right? This would be what I call a stall in radio. And unfortunately, I cannot find it. Yeah, no, it's not there. I can't find it. But anyway, it was a really good tweet, and not in a good way. It was a really good tweet where it basically described everything that's been going on with Jerry Tillery. And, oh, here it is. Things that seemingly don't change. Jerry Tillery, who's committed 2 incredibly egregious penalties during his time with the Raiders, had 19 penalties in 54 games with the Chargers, including 12 that resulted in first down for opponents. Talk about negative impact. It tells you all you need to know. Discipline, discipline, discipline. The Raiders have a lack of discipline, and Jerry Tillery has a lack of discipline. And the other penalty that Vinny was talking about was that Thursday game against the Rams last season when he extended a drive when really the Raiders should have won that game against the Rams, but well, Jerry Tillery struck again, so that happened again on Sunday. A couple more sound bites, and we'll get to segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, talk about the Raiders and their offense and their offensive struggles. The last 2 sound bites are questions that I asked Coach McDaniels about, and they had to do with Josh Jacobs. The first one is if he thinks he's starting to see the Josh Jacobs from last year, because he had a heck of a performance. More of it was in the passing game than even in the rushing game, but is he starting to see like Josh Jacobs round into form like he was last year?
Yeah, I mean, you know, he's he is who he is, and so however he gets the ball, it's a good play for us, in terms of giving him an opportunity. So Aiden found him a number of times in the passing game. I thought he ran hard, made some really good runs, in critical situations. The touchdown on 4th and 1, had some other really good solid runs in between the tackles too. So, the more we can give him the ball, the more we can get him started in space, the better we are. So, I thought he did a great job.
So I think that Josh Jacobs is starting to turn the corner. I think that's the one big positive you could take away from that Raiders game on Sunday is that Josh Jacobs is starting to look a lot more like himself. And again, I don't care, just like Coach McDaniels said, I don't care how he gets the ball. Receiving the ball, running the ball, whatever the case may be, he does a hell of a job, and he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's got an attitude when he runs. And I think now that he's angry for all these losses, I think he's really got a chip on his shoulder. And that was the last soundbite that I have, as a matter of fact, on Josh Jacobs and what he had to say in the locker room. He's tired of losing. He's tired of effing losing. His words, not mine. I asked Coach McDaniels about that, and, there's certain players that have that mentality of, I hate to lose more than I like to win. Josh Jacobs is that guy. So I asked Coach McDaniels about that. He kind of cut me off, but I think he understood the question when it comes to players' mentality in the locker room, and if that hate to lose more than they love to win mentality is what he's looking for.
I think everybody's feeling that. Like, I don't think anybody really cares about individual statistics right now. There's one statistic we care about now, and we got to do more things. Again, we've talked about this a lot, until you can stop from losing, it's hard to win, and so the things that contributed to losing, we got to stop, doing them, and taking care of the football offensively, penalties, in any phase of the game. We have to play a cleaner version of football, and if we do, I think the formula will be there, and things will seem like they're a little easier for us. Not easy in terms of who we're playing, but, we make the game hard sometimes, 2nd and 20 and 3rd and long and those kind of things, just giving free yards to the opponent, and then, putting the defense in bad positions, turning the ball over in our own end and having to play sudden change defense too many times this season. So, again, that's going to be the goal, to not turn the ball over and to try to play as penalty free as we can and see if that formula doesn't result in the game seeming a little simpler than what it seems right now.
So there you go. Coach McDaniels talking about that mentality of the players in the locker room, and that's how they all feel that they want to, obviously get back to winning. But again, like I said, there's something to being said about a player that hates to lose more than they like to win. Like Tom Brady was that guy. He hates to lose more than he liked to win. I had Coach Tom Herman when he coached UT. He told us in a media session that he needs a locker room. He's looking for a locker room. The characteristics of the guys he's looking for are guys that hate losing more than they like to win. The one that where they are sick to their stomach when they lose, as opposed to, being super happy and, over the moon about winning a game. And there's real deal. There's something to that. And Josh Jacobs, he fits that category. Devontae Adams, he fits that category. Max Crosby, he fits that category. And that's why they're alpha dogs. The Raiders need more guys like that hate losing more than they enjoy winning. Later on this morning, Coach Graham and Coach Lombardi will be meeting with the media in the Intermountain Health Performance Center at 11 a.m. and 11:15 approximately. That's their normal Tuesday schedule. The rest of the schedule for the week is going to be a little different since the Raiders don't play till Monday, but that's basically the schedule set in place. So today, Patrick Graham and Mick Lombardi at 11 a.m. and 11:15. Coming up in segment number 2, we're going to talk about that Raiders offense, and where is it at? Where is it at? The one part of the team I thought I wouldn't have to worry about is the one part of the team I'm really concerned about. We'll get to that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is Gametime. And I don't know if you have family and friends that come to town like mine do and want to go out, right? And, of course, being in Vegas, why not, right? If it's a Raider game, if it's an Aces game, if it's some kind of show, there's always something going on in town here, and there's always a ticket to it. And, well, sometimes you need to get last-minute tickets when you have friends and family come in last minute. Well, Gametime is where you can go because you shouldn't have to worry about when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, theater events near you. They got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Right now, it's simple. If you go to Gametime, it's the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. What does that mean? You can actually see the view from your seat before you buy it, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total up front. You know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees. You buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Right now, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to get into this Raiders offense. The one part of the team I didn't think I was going to have a concern about it. Part of the team I didn't think that I was going to have to talk about too much. I spent all offseason, all training camp, all preseason talking about defense, defense, defense. As long as the defense can complement the offense, the Raiders will be just fine. They've got Jimmy G. They've got Jacoby Myers. They've got Devontae Adams. They've got Hunter Renfrow. They've got Josh Jacobs. The offense is going to be clicking, right? They went out and drafted Michael Mayer. They got more speed with Trey Tucker. They brought in DeAndre Carter, right? There's a lot to like. Austin Hooper is a veteran that's been there, done that. This offense is going to be humming, right? The offensive line was going to get better. Well, guess what? The one area of the team that's really struggling right now is the offense. The offensive line has regressed, right? The last 2 games, they've given up 11 sacks, 4 to the Steelers and 7 to the Chargers. That's not going to get it done, right? Poor Aiden O'Connell was out there on Sunday, and he was just taking a beating, right? Khalil Mack, he's going to see Khalil Mack in his dreams. I mean, it's not quite as bad as what Daniel Jones had on Monday Night Football against the Seahawks, but, man, it's pretty bad. So when you take a deeper dive and you start to look into the Raiders offense, again, this is Josh McDaniels' baby, right? He's the offensive guru. He's the sharp mind, right? He's the guy that I said, my words, not anyone else's. Hey, the guy's an offensive play calling genius, right? He's going to be able to use the Raiders in the red zone to make sure that they score more points. They throw the ball into the end zone. Jimmy G does that really well. Like, these are my words. And so far, it hasn't come to fruition through 4 games. And now, look, I don't want to hit the panic button. I'm not looking for the big red button to hit the button and like, oh, my God, the sky's falling. I'm not doing that because the season still has 13 games guaranteed, and the Raiders still could earn more than that. They've got 18 weeks and 17 games is what you're guaranteed you're going to get each and every year. Whatever you earn after that, that's on you. So the Raiders still have plenty of time to turn it around, right? I mean, right now the Chiefs are in first place in the division, followed by the Chargers, and then the Raiders and the Broncos are knotted up at the bottom of the division at 1-3. So, I mean, it's all right there, right? I mean, it's not like Kansas City separated themselves that much. They're 3-1. The Raiders are 1-3. That's a couple game swing, not a big deal. So things could turn around quick, fast, and hurry. You look at the schedule coming up, the next handful of games are all winnable games for the Raiders. They're also all losable games. We've seen teams that they can beat lose to the teams that they can beat, like the Steelers. They could have won that game on Sunday Night Football. The game on Sunday against the Chargers could have won that. Those teams weren't superior teams to them. They just lost. They just played bad. And a lot of the reason why they played bad was because the offense stunk. They're not scoring points. I've talked about it. Not scoring 20 points in the game is a problem. They haven't scored 20 points one time this season. That's an issue. That's a problem. They've scored 17 points, 10 points, 18 points, and 17 points in 4 games. 62 total points. That's averaging 15.5 a game. That's not going to cut it. Right now, only the Giants, the Bengals, and the Patriots score less than the Raiders. The Giants have scored 46 total points, the Bengals 49 total points, and the Patriots 55. The G-men, you probably saw them on Monday Night Football. They stink. Daniel Jones is terrible, right? He's just not that good. I know he got a contract extension, but he's just not that good. And the Giants can't get anything going. Saquon Barkley's been injured. And by the way, Daniel Jones got sacked 11 times or 10 times. The Giants got credited with 11 sacks because they had a busted play as well. So the Seahawks went off. Side note, Mario Edwards Jr. Contributed to that for the Seahawks. He's still in the league after being a former draft pick of the Silver and Black. So he contributed with a nice strip sack on Daniel Jones. Also, Devin Witherspoon, the defensive back that I thought would be a really good Raider that I was kind of pounding the table for. Seattle went and drafted him at number 5 overall, didn't give the Raiders a chance. He had 2 sacks on the day, and he had a pick 6. Think about that. That rookie has more production defensively than the Raiders have this year. 2 sacks in one day and a pick 6, right? I mean, that's from the rookie. So he had a hell of a day for Seattle. But that's not the subject that we're talking about here in segment number 2. The Bengals have only scored 49 points. We know Joe Burrow is dealing with the calf injury. He hasn't looked like the Joe Burrow himself. And the Bengals, who have a high-flying offense, their offense has been very grounded so far this year. The Patriots, they just don't have a very good offense. Mac Jones was benched on Sunday for Bailey Zappi. Who knows if he'll get back in the game. But those are the only 3 teams that are scoring less points than the Silver and Black. How about scoring the same amount? The Jets, Steelers, Falcons, and Saints. The Jets have a great defense, great running game. Quarterback is suspect. Zach Wilson, we know Aaron Rodgers went down after 4 plays. Steelers, they won 2 games based off their defense, not their offense. We know how much their offense is in question. Mike Tomlin's talking about they got to make some changes. They've already been talking about firing Matt Canada, their offensive coordinator. So they've got issues. The Falcons and Saints play in a terrible division. So they've got a couple wins on the season, but they can score 17 points a game and still win. It's just bad. Right? I mean, that's just crazy. All the teams that have scored less than the Raiders, they're all 1-3. The Raiders are 1-3. The teams, the Jets and Steelers, the Jets are 1-3. The Jets are 1-3, and the rest of the teams that I talked about are 2-2. Steelers, Falcons, and Saints are all 2-2. Again, I already explained why the Steelers have won 2 games, and the Falcons and Saints, they play in a terrible division. I mean, it's just that simple. So those are the only teams that are scoring like the Raiders, and they've got to figure things out. They got to get it turned around. Think about this. Let's deep dive a little bit further when you're looking at the Raiders scoring. The Raiders do all their damage in the first quarter and the fourth quarter, and that's it for the most part. In week 1, 17 points they scored total. In the second and third quarter, they scored a total of 3 points. 3 points in the second quarter, none in the third quarter. Week 2 against the Bills, well, everything was bad. They scored a touchdown in the first quarter, and they scored 3 points in the second quarter, and never scored in the second half. They only scored 10 points. But the Bills, as you could tell, after putting a whooping on the Dolphins 48-20, they look like they're rounded into shape. Ever since that Raider game, they've been playing great. So maybe they are the team. They had a bad day week 1 against the Jets on Monday Night Football, but maybe Buffalo really is a good team, and you don't feel bad about them putting up 38 points on the Silver and Black because they just put 48 points on the Miami Dolphins, who many people thought were the best team in the AFC. How about week 3? 18 points they scored against Pittsburgh. No points in the second quarter or no points in the third quarter. They did all their damage in the first and the fourth. And then on Sunday, no points in the second quarter, 3 points in the third quarter. They did all their damage in the first and the fourth quarter. They can't play 2 quarters and think they're going to win games. They can't. They've got to be consistent. They're not good enough to do that. They're not. We talk about don't play one half of football. You got to play 4 quarters. Well, they're not even playing one half. They're playing 2 quarters, the first and the last. And that's it. They're kind of sleepwalking through the second and third quarter. Something's got to jumpstart them. Somehow someone's got to put some jumper cables on their batteries in the second and third quarter and get it going. And I don't know who it is, and I don't know what it is. I really don't. But that's got to be the most frustrating thing, that in the second and third quarter, they can't get anything going. In 8 quarters, the second and third quarter through 4 games, they've scored a total of 9 points. It's not going to win games. You're not going to win games like that. I don't know, again, like I said, what it's going to take for Josh McDaniels to get this thing jump-started, but what should have been the strength, or what I thought was going to be the strength, or what many people believe was going to be the strength of the team, right now is not. And on Sunday, I think that we can all agree the defense played better than the offense. Yeah, they gave it 24 points in the first half, but they gave them this chance in the second half. They pitched a shutout. Justin Herbert only had 167 yards passing. You held Justin Herbert under 200 yards? Yeah, you gave yourself a chance. That's a winner. And you came up with a turnover? That's a winner. Didn't win the game. They've got to find a way to generate some points. I didn't think that this would be a conversation that we had this year. I thought it was going to be, how do you stop somebody? How do you stop from the bleeding? Well, I'm asking about how do you stop the bleeding, but it's the 3-game losing streak that they're on. Not the fact that the defense is a sieve. The defense is, giving them chances. The offense can't get it done. How do they come up with an offensive game plan consistently throughout the game? They start off the game fine. They finish the game fast and furious, trying to win games at the end. That's how they won the one game in Denver at the end. That's how they almost won week 3 with Pittsburgh. That's how they almost won week 4 with the Chargers. 3 out of the first 4 games were on the road, so, that's not easy. Now you got to come back home week 5 against Green Bay. Monday night, you got an extra night, extra day to prepare. What will you come out looking like? Can you put together 4 quarters? That's the big question. That's all I got for you for segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Coming up in segment number 3, your calls and texts. Straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. We'll get into it after I tell you about FanDuel. And right now, you need to snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. New customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. They got a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and a whole lot more. And it makes the game a little bit more interesting when you have like a player prop bet. There was a couple that I was interested in. I didn't put any money down, but there was a couple I was interested in from Monday Night Football. Matt Breida of the Giants over 45.5 yards rushing. I don't believe he got that. And then Geno Smith was over 1.5 touchdown passes. He didn't get that. He left the game with the injury. Did come back in the second half, but didn't get that either, but did have a touchdown early. So it was kind of close with those 2 player prop bets, but it just is another element, even just to check it out to see what the guys at FanDuel are thinking about. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the NFL season the right way. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with a call from the 717. He's calling to ask about a rookie that he's not seeing much from at this point of the season. Here it is, a call from the 717.
Hey, Q, Ari, what's up, guys? I just wanted to kind of say this. I'm fine with, whatever happened. I'm fine with it. But what's really getting under my skin and I hope you can ask Josh this when you see him next, is why isn't Trey Turner, like, even on the field? I mean, I feel like he could be like our next Tyreek Hill, and burn everyone down the sideline. Or I'm sorry, not even that. He can be like Tyreek Hill, but I would say he could be like our guy that got in trouble, Henry Ruggs, And I just don't understand why we're not doing it. It is what it is, but I just wanted to know if you could ask Josh that question. I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks, bud.
Thanks so much for the call. I appreciate you. Next time you call, you got to give me your name. Right? I got to get your name, but thanks for the call. And yeah, I mean, when it comes to Trey Tucker, I'm assuming because he's a rookie, they're treating him as such. But I mean, he's got that speed element, and that speed element is something that the Raiders have been missing ever since Henry Ruggs. We know what happened with him, but they need that. DeAndre Carter is quick. You saw a kick return that he had. It was a nice return on Sunday against the Chargers. But I'd like to see somebody get in space, put in space, and be able to use that speed to their advantage, right? And if you got to have DeAndre Carter and Trey Tucker out there at the same time, fine. I just think that speed can go a long way. I'm with you. I'd like to see a little bit more of that element added to the mix. Maybe, as the season goes along, we'll start to see more. I know that Josh McDaniels is not a guy that tends to use a lot of rookies offensively, right? Either running backs or wide receivers or obviously tight ends, because Michael Mayer hasn't done anything either. But, man, this team needs all the help it can get offensively. So you may have to kind of take that philosophy out of the mix and get these guys more involved. Thanks for the call. I do appreciate you. Again, hit us up at 707-654-4693. Make sure you let me know your name, though. I want to give you props on your name and not, hey, a call from the 717. Up next, got a text from Raider Will in the 816. Q, Raider Will at the 816 here. I know the inbox is going to be flooded after this loss. I hope my question can get through, though. My question is, when is it going to be respectfully called out on how bad or how it's blatantly obvious that our coaches aren't putting our players in the best situation to succeed? Why wouldn't the script be for our rookie quarterback to be more quick outs, screens, run plays, etc.? He was clearly processing the game slowly, and leaving the Luminor one-on-one with Mac was asking to get Aiden killed. I guess the main thing I don't get is that for a quote-unquote offensive guru, why am I not seeing any innovative plays? Thanks for letting me vent. Appreciate all you do, Q. Stay blessed, brother. That's Raider Will in the 816, and I think that's fair. I ask all the time, if you're going to criticize the coach or even criticize players, just be fair about it. I think I like to think that I'm very fair about, my criticism. I try not to make it personal. Some people do. I try not to do that. But asking a question about, hey, when's the offensive guru going to show up? I think that's very fair. I asked the same question in segment 2. I thought this was going to be a strength of the team. It's not. And, I've asked questions to Coach McDaniels about how to get this offense jump-started, how to get the run game going, how to, get everyone more involved. I talked about Hunter Renfrow with them. I mean, we ask the questions as much as possible. There's no answer that, no one single answer. It's somehow this team has just got to get things going, right? You hear Coach McDaniels talk after games. You hear players talk after games. There's no single one solution. But it is frustrating when it looked like that was going to be the strength of the team, the offense, and it's been everything but that. But thanks so much for that text. I do appreciate you. And you know what? Illuminor versus Mac one-on-one, terrible idea, right? That's the one thing that I think everyone knew going into the season, that the offensive line, I didn't think Jermaine Illuminor was a starting right tackle. He was the only one who thought that. He said as soon as he re-signed with the team, him and Colton Miller were going to be the best bookend tackle combination in the league. And I think everyone looked at it like, not really, dude. You know what I mean? Like, you're not that guy. You're a better swing tackle than a starting right tackle. I don't know what the Raiders can do at that position, but, that's 2 weeks in a row. TJ Watt got the best of Illuminor, and then Khalil Mack, took him to town. So something's got to give on that right side. I don't think that there's a quick fix on the roster right now. I would like to think that Thayer Munford fits better with what they want to do because he has the size, but clearly he's not ready, or else he'd be in there as opposed to Jermaine Illuminor. But thank you so much for that text. I do appreciate you. Next up is a call from Raider Vossel. He's calling to give his thoughts on the game, talks about Aiden O'Connell and a few more elements of the game. Here he is, Raider Vossel.
Hey, what's up, Q? This is Raider Vossel calling. Give my thoughts on the game. My more calmer thoughts, I guess you could say. So, I mean, looking at the game, I really think that, the O-line is not, man, they are not doing well. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening. What can you say, right? They did not take care of Aiden at all And Aiden, he still managed to get off, a pretty okay game. I mean, it wasn't super good or nothing like that, but yeah, and the penalties, man, the penalties got to be cleaned up. And just the discipline and the penalties and the O-line. If those three things were at working at a better than decent level, I mean, you're talking about a win. So that's kind of disappointing because it's like now, I mean, we're just, the fans, we're sick of the coaching, it's like we blame the coaching without seeing the bigger picture, because, he just, the head coach has not shown what he came here to do, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's outed as an offensive genius, but, okay, well, why, at least why wasn't he telling the offensive line, hey, we need to dial up a play that protects Aiden, more, max protect, something like that. But I will say, hey, last time I said the keys to the game was discipline, because as Mike Tyson has famously said, he don't care about talent. Talent is cheap, but determination and discipline is expensive, and people don't want to put in the work because time is money. But anyway, that's all I got to say, man. Go Raiders.
Thanks for the call, my man. I appreciate you, and I agree, man. Discipline is what drives me crazy, right? There's no reason for this team not to be disciplined. That's something that Coach McDaniels stressed last year, last training camp, last preseason. Discipline. Don't beat yourself. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. Don't have stupid penalties. Don't turn the ball over, right? I mean, that was his words, not mine. This year, discipline. Don't turn the ball over. Don't have stupid penalties. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. Learn how to not to lose as opposed to win, right? I mean, all that great coach speak, and it just hasn't shown up. His team is still undisciplined. And it's not just a Coach McDaniels thing. It's been a Raiders thing for a long time. And I don't know. It's so frustrating. It makes me want to pull my hair out because so many of the mistakes are just dumb, boneheaded decisions, right? Even Max Crosby threw his hands up when Jerry Tillery hit Herbert out of bounds, threw his head up like that was dumb. Even told Herbert that was a dumb effing play. I mean, he said that. You can see him clearly mouth that to him or say it to him. You can see his, if you're kind of reading his lips during the broadcast, you can see him say it. I mean, Max knows, and every once in a while he'll get a penalty, but I'm okay with Max penalties just because I know that Max is doing everything he can to to provide some juice for the Raiders team, where other guys, it just, it's easy to question. So, yeah, I don't know, man. That discipline, it drives me crazy. I can go on and on about that. Maybe I'll do a whole segment on it one day, but it just drives me nuts. Got time for one more text. We'll take this one from Raider Jason in the 304. It says, hey, Q, it's Raider Jason from the 304. First, love the show. Thanks for what you do and how you present yourself in the show. First class. Time to start Mumford at right tackle. He can't possibly be worse than Illuminor. Khalil Mack wrecked the game. That was a F. A FU game to the Raiders. Should have never traded that guy. Could you imagine having Mack with Crosby? O'Connell did okay. Might as well roll with the young buck the rest of the way. Hopefully he can get the offense rolling. They need to keep getting JJ over 100 yards per game from scrimmage. They have to win this week. Those last two losses were devastating. Just win, baby. Go Raiders. That's Raider Jason in 304. And, yeah, I mean, we were just talking about that right tackle spot. I would love to see somebody take that spot from Illuminor. If it's Mumford, great, right? I mean, there was a battle in training camp between Mumford and Illuminor, and I thought Mumford was winning it. And then all of a sudden Illuminor got the nod, so I don't know what changed it. But you're right about Khalil Mack. He wrecked the game. And that was the one thing about Gruden, right? After he traded Khalil Mack, he was like, that guy's not going to ruin the game. Remember that London game when he was with the Bears? And they did everything. They were like, anybody on this team is going to beat us but that guy. Oh, that's what the Raiders need to do. And I know that Coach McDaniels said that they had everybody and their mother, trying to slow down Khalil Mack. It sure didn't look like it on Sunday. He had his way with the Raiders offensive line and ultimately had his way sacking Aiden O'Connell 6 times and the Chargers sacking him 7 total times. That just can't happen. So, it's something's got to give. I don't know if the answer and the solution is on the roster. As far as O'Connell, Josh McDaniels talked about it on Monday. Looks like that Jimmy G is going to get the start as long as he's healthy. And, I mean, that's fine. I just, like I said, wish that he had an opportunity to play multiple games in a row. That's what I was really looking for from the rookie. And that's 100% reason why I didn't want him to start on Sunday, because I didn't want to start and stop him. Start and stop, like rush hour traffic, start and stop, start and stop, start and stop. That's what I didn't want to see. But again, I'm not the coach, not trying to second guess the coach, just my thoughts, my opinions. And well, that's what I give on my show. Right? I mean, again, no disrespect to anyone else, but I mean, I'm just saying that's, I give my feelings and they don't always have to be right, but they're mine. So I'm going to roll with it. And that's all I got time for on today's show. Still got a call from Raider X, text from Desert Raider in Arizona, Peter JJ in Tacoma, Washington, Phil from the JSRBC out of Jersey. All those will come up on tomorrow's show. We'll start to turn the page to the Green Bay Packers. Got an extra day to talk about them, so that's cool and fun and exciting. Of course, on Thursday, we'll have the crossover edition. Peter Bukowski, my good friend, will join the show, so that'll be fun. Talk all things Packers and Raiders. We'll give keys to victory. Matter of fact, we'll do that on Monday's show since it's Monday Night Football. So we have extra days to talk about this team and where they're going and how they can get things turned around and snap their 3-game losing streak. But until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.